Hi there. This channel is supposed to be a kind of a think tank for Gnosticism. But I mean, you'd never think so, since all you have really is my voice droning on, presentation after presentation, with the ever ever present threat of me abandoning the channel altogether and not having anything more to do with YouTube, which is what I would like to do really. But there are a few more videos that I would like to upload. Um, YouTube management willing. Anyway, so be that as it may. Um, I'm talking about matter and the material, but really this is a presentation which is linked to survival after death. And here is where you uh, viewers come in, because what do you think happens after death? I mean, I don't know what I've included all this gubbins for, really. I mean, thinking about matter itself and the material, and the limitations of matter and the material. It's and really in related to matter, related to a dualistic world, which is how Gnostics perceive this world. I mean, for example, matter, the material, it can either be in the right place or the right time for you, or the wrong place in the wrong time for you, or your community, or your family, or your country, even. And first thing to say about perception, people will say, well, all this is perceived, isn't it? Really, the right place at the right time is your perception. But what perceives? Well, the brain perceives. The brain actually is a material object, a highly powerful condensed computer, and a matrix of neuron pathways, and that is doing the perception. So that's kind of the material. And if you were a materialist, you would say that the brain is all there is. That the brain is generating consciousness through its activities. And once that brain ceases activity, there is no more consciousness to perceive. But I mean, the matter, the material, will still be there, presumably to be recycled back into the ecosystem from where it came. So perception or real, it doesn't really matter. I can still say the material is the wrong place at the wrong time, and then the right place at the right time. And if it's the right place at the right time, hooray! There could be gain, and we are glad. There could even be an accumulation of luxury, or luxury, which is suppose is at the end of gain. When you've gained enough, you're in a luxurious position. And but the other side of being glad, too glad, is becoming bad, becoming corrupt. And at the seat of all corruption is grasping. I mean, you might want more than what you have, or you might want to hold on to what you have. And this will make you a bit of a bad person. And you start manipulating, exploiting, being predatory, etc., etc. And obviously, the heart of all this grasping, which is a Buddhist term, by the way, heart of all this over gladness, and this corruption, this badness inside, is selfishness. So people that are in a luxurious position become selfish, more and more selfish. However, and I have here the judgment, but I've got here, this might be judged a good thing, because whereas selfishness, people would take it as a bad thing, other people say selfishness is a good thing. But I mean, I think overweening selfishness is probably a bad thing, just as overweening or unbalanced unselfishness is a bad thing. So I have here the sort of the judgmental voice, uh, the deprecatory, my new word of the week, deprecatory voice, which means you're the voice that puts you down all the time. So you're either judging yourself for being too unselfish, or you're judging yourself for being too selfish. And other people are judging you as well. And that may not matter to you, but you are looking at yourself in the mirror and you're saying, I'm being very grasping. And I used to be glad just to have gain. But now I've got luxury. I've become more grasping, and more manipulative, exploitative, and predatory in order to either get more luxury, or to hold on to the luxury that I have, that I perceive other people are trying to take away from me. Um, so um, so that's basically that's it all stems from matter, the material being at the right place at the right time. And back to the famous quotation from Oscar Wilde. The two tragedies in life. One is not having what you want, and the other is having what you want. And that's kind of like based on that, really. But what is more usual in this world is matter being at the wrong time and the wrong place for you, your family, your community, your country, even. And and this leads to adversity, which makes us mad, frustrated, furious. That the five Fs come in here. We go into fantasy as well, but we go mad, and mad in a bad way, and there may be loss as well, and we may be sad. But at the heart of sadness, and even of madness, is an ungrasping. So if somebody dies in your life, you're forced to let them go. Otherwise, you're going to really suffer more and more. But the grieving process, I suppose, is a process of letting go of somebody that was there, that is no longer there. So really, in a way, adversity and loss can lead to ungrasping, which is the heart of the monks of the Buddhist monk, because they lose everything, and they go headlong into adversity, poverty, for example. But instead of getting mad, they get wise. And instead of getting sad, they accept what is, because they accept that they have ungrasped, they have attained a Buddha mind as a result of their loss. And of course, one thinks of adversity and loss bringing people together. Families can come together as a result of adversity and loss. Communities can come together. People can become altruistic and unselfish who were previously selfish. And the leopard can change his spots. And so we have here a good thing arising from adversity. And but sometimes this can be judged to be a bad thing. This unselfishness, and we go back to where we started. People, the voice can either say this is a bad thing or a good thing. Now, I've actually put all these categories into these connecting boxes here, because this really follows, what Wittgenstein said about fuzzy edges. When you have a category like wrong place at the wrong time, this is actually a category, and right place at right time is another category. But in the real world, all these categories blend into one another. So, gladness, madness, badness, and sadness, they all come together. In the words of Facebook, it's complicated. So you have a complex sort of spectrum of emotions, and mixed emotions about everything in life, really, about the good things in life and the bad things in life. And it's this sort of mixture of madness, badness, gladness, and sadness, that I suppose create the experience of being human. And and also grasping and ungrasping, which is a response. Judging and non-judging is another response we'll have. So these outer boxes represent sort of responses, but again, judgment and non-judgment sort of blend into each other. And of course, following the yin and the yang, the seed of one thing is contained in its opposite, and vice versa. So that's important to bear in mind. So the seed of badness can result in sadness, but the seed of sadness can result in badness. So there you are. Somebody is being a bad person. They're not doing it just out of sort of out of because they're being taken over by demonic forces arbitrarily, although that is possible as well, actually. But anyway, there is a reason why people go bad, and it could be to do with adversity as well as luxury, and sadness and loss as well as gain. So that's why these boxes are all interconnected, and the whole thing is interconnected with each other. And this is the world of the demiurge. Everything is connected to everything else. The seed of one thing is contained in its opposite, and you have, like, the great tragedy of life, having what you want and not having what you want. Matter, material, being in the right place at the right time, and not in the right place, not in the right time, at the right time, and all shades in between. So basically, the soul, according to Gnostic tradition, the soul is trapped in this sort of dualistic yantra, as I might say, dualistic kind of figure that I've painted here. And the soul is here, and I can't even see where the soul is. You see, because the soul is so trapped in all this, and so where is my oh, there it is. So I can sort of draw a soul in here, and the soul is trapped in the material and matter. And the question basically is, what happens when there's no longer any material? Well, as far as my consciousness is concerned, when my body is dead, then you could say matter is permanently in the wrong place at the wrong time, isn't it? Because I go back to the fundamental elements of matter when I die. And indeed, one of my sayings is that death is no separation from the elements that gave us life, which is a sort of philosophical way of looking at death, I suppose. But on the other hand, so I come to my question, basically the question mark, which I started this presentation with, which maybe you could answer, is what happens after death? And it seems to me there's almost three alternatives, really, but maybe there are other alternatives. One is that there is glorious oblivion, and nothing to be afraid of. You just go to sleep forever. Brain activity ceases. The body goes back to the elements that gave it life in the beginning. You go back to the great ocean or whatever, and that's it, basically. And you sleep and there's peace, rest in peace. But then there's another alternative where you could give me a bit of a trite answer, and say, well, you'll know when you'll get there. So out here we have a possible outcome, where you enter into transcendence, you enter into a non-dualistic world, where all these concepts that I've discussed in this presentation and in all my other presentations cease to mean anything, because you're in a non-dualistic situation, and consciousness, perfect bliss, sit satananda, perfect bliss, perfect consciousness, perfect being, as the Brahmins say. And this is the promise, basically, that you will know when you get there, and what you will know is transcendental non-duality, basically. But the other alternative, which I've also thought about, is a slightly more horrific one, and that's when you get there. All right, when you draw it down here, when you get there to non-transcendental realm, to the realm of God, the heaven, as one figuratively might call it, and you don't know that you're there. You don't know what it is that you don't know what you're seeing. You don't know what you're experiencing. And I would say that would be the definition of hell, actually, because you know when you get there, but if you get there and you don't know what it is, where it is you are at, um, and of course I say there, without much kind of without much conviction about what that there means. What is there? There is a God. What does that mean? So I say it in an almost sort of figurative kind of way, or because I can't say anything else. So you get there, but you don't know where it is you are at, and you're just in a state of total and utter mental consciousness confusion. it's like you're tripping, and you don't know you're tripping. People have tripped. People have put LSD in drinks at a club, and you're tripping. You don't know you're tripping, and that apparently is a definition of hell, because you don't know what's going on. All you know is that is goodbye Kansas, and welcome to the Wizard of Oz land. And this is trippy land, but you don't know you're tripping. And apparently that is really, really, really horrific. Um, I mean, tripping is pretty horrific for people that don't like tripping, like me. And I only tripped once, and I didn't like it, and that was hell enough. But to be tripping without realizing that someone has spiked your drink is must be the definition of literal hell. But I suppose when we talk about Jesus and the harrowing of hell, there is a Jesus or a psychopomp. We don't have to call it Jesus if you don't want to. We could just call it a psychopomp. Comes into the middle of this mental mess, this consciousness mess, and speaks to you in a quiet voice and says, "You are actually in heaven, but you don't know you're in heaven. What you need to do is chill out and relax and just go with the flow. And the flow will take you to a non-dualistic consciousness, whereby you can exist and appreciate where you are at, which is basically the transcendental realm. So that's basically, so the divine mercy comes in and saves you from your torment of not knowing you are in heaven, sort of thing, which would be tormenting. Um, but maybe this is where I don't know, after death, where does it all go? What happens? What does that question actually even mean? And this is where I sort of leave it up to your comments below to enlighten me. I mean, obviously it assumes that soul is trapped in matter, and that on death or liberation, soul goes back to the transcendental realm. So this is a sort of the Gnostic assumption, without which Gnosticism doesn't really work. It's like theosophy. If you don't believe in reincarnation, theosophy doesn't work as a thought process or a meditation. And if you don't accept the soul being trapped in matter, and being liberated at death, and going into the transcendental realm, then Gnosticism doesn't work. As a religion, you go find another religion that does work for you. You know what I mean? That does give you intellectual or emotional satisfaction. And I think for a lot of people, Christianity used to supply intellectual satisfaction and emotional fulfillment, and it doesn't anymore because since the Enlightenment, it's more likely that we really all just truly believe that nothing happens after death and it's just oblivion. But apparently philosophically, you can't prove a negative. You see, so you can't prove that there is no God. It's difficult to prove there is no God for some reason, which I don't really understand. Anyway, but it could be just a fantastic release after death, and all this presentation and this video mean nothing at all, and it's all just all just pie in the sky, and a lot of old hokum really, and you're sort of released from the hokum of metaphysics as well, for that matter, because you go into this sleep forever, and you're no longer assailed by having to thinking you have to believe in something, like you have to believe in heaven or hell or Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha or whatever. You don't have to believe in any of this stuff. All this stuff sort of gets cleared away, because everything gets cleared away when your brain ceases to be active, when it's dead. Um, and so that could be sort of fairly liberating. And of course, the other thing about dying is that you're also making room for other people to live as well. Because if you try to live forever, there wouldn't be anybody else. You take all the resources of future persons. Not that you probably care about that, because you only care about yourself, but maybe you should care about future persons, that have yet to be, and you're taking resources away from these people that have yet to be. So in a sense, you have to kind of let go and let people take over from where you stop. And that goes for metaphysics as well. When the metaphysician, the metaphysics person, stops contemplating the eternal or the transcendent, it's time for someone else to come in and take up the reins, take up the mantle, as it were, take up the rod of power, as it were, and they carry on thinking about metaphysics where because you stop thinking about it. Anyway, that doesn't really help, I suppose, because you just really, you could be just sort of as Professor Grayling said, what's the point of perpetrating a lie? How can you be comforted by a lie if there is no God, no afterlife? You're just telling people fibs, and then you're propagating these fibs through religion, and making people feel obliged to believe in all this stuff. Because you want them to be good Americans, or because you want to be good Muslims, or good Arabs, or whatever. And if you don't believe in all this stuff, you're a bad Arab, or you're a bad American, or even a bad Jew, I suppose. And you shouldn't do this. Religion is a bad thing, basically, because it's all based on lies and deceit and duplicity, and fairy tales. And yet, it commands such fear and respect from its leaders that people would do terrible things, torture and murder and blow things up, out of respect for their lying religion. And I started off life as being an atheist, so in the back of my mind, always there is this atheistic argument, which is really very, very strong when you think about it. But anyway, I must park it there. I must let you have the stage or the microphone, because I've had it long enough. And just put whatever comments you feel like putting down below. I will be very interested in them. Thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.